The air over the Warrington estate clung heavy with heat, thick with money, perfume, and expectation. Beneath rows of white linen tents, flutes of champagne caught light from hanging lanterns, clinking to the sound of curated jazz and shallow toasts. It was the kind of party meant for headlines, the sort where people smile wide for cameras but never unclench their jaws. Legacy fund managers, art collectors, tech royalty, and spouses who hadn't spoken since breakfast mingled on freshly trimmed grass, nursing cocktails and opportunity. Jasper Holt stood just outside the social ring, barely noticed. Despite being the reason they'd all gathered, 36, sharp-jawed and silent. He looked every inch the CEO who'd built Trellis from a dorm room codebase into a global machine. His name sat on magazine covers, but tonight he didn't care for attention. He swirled bourbon in a crystal glass, scanning the crowd with a quiet detachment. No one on his arm, no publicist smoothing things over, just him and the reality of all he traded to get here. To his left, a hedge wall trimmed into sculpted symmetry offered momentary shade. He moved toward it, letting the laughter and false affection fade behind him. Sweat gathered at the collar of his pale gray shirt beneath his blazer. He didn't belong to this party. He merely funded it. He had everything, but what did it matter when no one at this event knew what he had lost? Hey, before we jump in, I just want to say this. Story's been trimmed down so we can get straight to what matters. No fluff, no long monologues, just truth. But real quick, if you're watching right now, do me a favor, hit that like button and drop a comment below. It tells YouTube this story is worth sharing and someone out there might need to hear it. Now, let's begin. Jasper glanced down at his bourbon glass, half empty, sweating in the heat. A quiet click of heels on stone caught his attention. He turned. The moment stopped. Across the lawn beneath a trellis heavy with climbing roses, a woman emerged, poised, graceful, achingly familiar. She wore a deep navy silk dress that moved like water with every step. Her skin held the warmth of sunlit bronze. Her dark curls brushed against her jawline with every shift in the breeze. For a second, Jasper forgot to breathe. Alina and beside her, two small girls, maybe 5. Their dresses fluttered in matching pale lavender, their hands curled into the folds of their mother's gown. Both girls turned at once, curious eyes scanning the crowd. He froze, because those weren't just two random children. They had his eyes, his mouth, his exact defiant chin. He didn't move, not when a waiter brushed past him with a tray of flutes, not when the hedge behind him rustled in the breeze, because standing 20 feet away was the one person he never expected to see again. Alina waited, and with her those girls, 2 of them, small hands, wide eyes, perfect posture, as if they'd been raised on books and boundaries. Jasper's grip tightened around the glass. The bourbon tasted like dust in his mouth. He took a step forward. They didn't see him yet. Alina knelt to adjust the strap on one girl's shoe, brushing a stray curl behind her ear with the same gentleness he remembered from so long ago. The other twin turned her head suddenly and caught him. Hazel eyes locked with his. She tilted her head just slightly, curious, exactly the way he used to tilt his when someone said something that didn't quite add up. Jasper's chest tightened, his breath stalled somewhere in his throat. The girls were his. Not maybe, not possibly. His. He looked at Alina again, who now stood fully upright, eyes raised. She saw him, and in that instant the noise of the party faded. The string quartet kept playing, people kept drinking and laughing and posing for photographers, but between them the space folded. And only silence remained. Alina's lips parted as if she'd been caught between grace and grief. "Jas," she said one word, and his heart, hardened by boardrooms and buyouts, cracked. He took another step toward her, glass forgotten in his hand. Alina didn't move. The girls, his daughters, turned to their mother with small voices only a parent could hear. One tugged at her hand. "Mommy, who's that man?" Alina didn't answer right away. Jasper's voice was low when he found it. "They're mine, aren't they?" Her silence was sharper than any slap. Finally, she looked down at the twins. "This is Jasper," she said softly. "He's your father." That word father hit harder than any deal he'd ever closed, any title he'd ever claimed. For all the years he'd dominated tech and headlines, he'd missed the only thing that could have made him whole. He stared at them. One twin clutched a small purse peeking from behind Alina's thigh. The other squinted up at him with open curiosity, fingers wrapped tight around her sister's. How had he missed this? How had no one told him? How could the world keep spinning while his own children were growing up without him? His eyes flicked up to Alina's. He didn't need to ask what she'd been through. It was in her jaw, in the quiet armor behind her gaze. Still, he stepped closer, not to fix anything in that moment, but to face it. "What would you do," the voiceover asked gently, "if the woman you loved showed up with two little girls who looked just like you? Would you walk away again, or would you stay and fight for the family you never knew you had?" The Warrington estate never lacked grandeur. Floodlights kissed the ivy-covered arches. The garden lawn was a patchwork of heels, polished shoes, and white linen. Every conversation was a transaction. Every smile was timed. Jasper stood in the middle of it all, and yet apart. He was the name on the sponsor banner, the man behind the evening's luxury, but no one reached for him the way they reached for champagne or clout. He preferred it that way. His tailored blazer sat sharp across his shoulders, but he tugged at the collar as if it choked him. Laughter floated by in clusters, too loud, too precise. Small talk blurred around him like static. A blonde heiress brushed his arm in passing. "Mr. Holt," she purred. He nodded once. "Evening." She moved on when he didn't linger. Another glass of bourbon appeared in his hand, courtesy of a hovering waiter. He didn't sip it. Instead, he scanned the crowd. He wasn't looking for anyone, not really. He just needed a reason to stay one more minute before ghosting his own event. That's when he saw her. At first, she was just movement, elegant, deliberate, emerging through a frame of rose-covered arches. Then, her face. Alina. Even in that modest navy dress, she made the entire estate fade. Her stride was graceful, her posture steady. A woman who wasn't here to prove anything to anyone. Two little girls held either side of her dress. One kept pointing at things, the string quartet, a bowl of strawberries, someone's dangling earrings. The other clung closer, eyes more cautious, watchful. But both of them, Jasper's pulse quickened. Something wasn't right. No, something was exactly right. Too right. Those girls had his shape of jaw, the lighter version of his skin. The same eyes that mirrored back at him every time he checked his reflection during a video call or press appearance. His vision shimmered at the edges, a hollow tightness spreading in his chest. He forced a slow breath, but it didn't steady him. For a moment, he thought he might have to sit down. The bourbon glass trembled in his hand, betraying the calm he tried to project. He gripped it tighter, willing the shake to stop. He didn't move, didn't blink. The bourbon glass in his hand might as well have been stone. Alina didn't see him yet. She crouched, adjusted one girl's sandal strap, then whispered something that made them both smile. Jasper took a step forward. She looked up and locked eyes with him. Everything in her paused. No surprise, no flinch, just recognition. A knowing calm in her expression, but her hands visibly stilled. He didn't stop walking until he was 3 feet away, close enough to breathe in her perfume. Alina, her lips pressed into a line. Jasper. A flicker of silence passed. The twins were now looking up, curious. He looked down at them again. "They're yours." She didn't answer right away. He met her eyes. "They're mine too, aren't they?" She didn't nod, she didn't deny it. Instead, she gently rested a hand on each girl's head. "This is Mia," she said softly, then shifted to the right. "And this is Lila." His breath caught. Alina glanced at the girls. "They're ours." The words hit harder than any acquisition meeting or lawsuit he'd ever sat through. One girl, Lila, stepped slightly forward. "Mommy, who's this?" Alina looked down, voice steady. "He's your father." Jasper's heart cracked clean open. Everything around him blurred. The music, the chatter, the weight of expectations. He couldn't hear any of it. His eyes moved between them. Alina, Mia, Lila, trying to hold 3 lifetimes of meaning at once. Why hadn't he known? Where had they been? How had so many years passed without even a whisper? He tried to speak but found no words. His voice lodged somewhere between guilt and awe. Alina straightened, brushing invisible lint from her dress. "You didn't know," she said, not accusing, just stating. He shook his head slowly. "I didn't even know you were pregnant. I tried letters, blocked emails, changed numbers. You made yourself unreachable." A memory hit him. His assistant 5 years ago, filtering his inbox like a fortress. She had said, "Let me handle distractions." He'd called Alina a distraction. The thought made him sick. The girls watched them, both sensing tension without understanding it. Jasper took one step back. I need a moment. Alina nodded. He turned, not to leave, but to breathe. 5 years ago, Trellis was burning through capital at an unsustainable rate. A hostile board takeover loomed. The company had 2 quarters left to prove profitability or be gutted. Jasper had stopped sleeping. He canceled dinner dates, stopped returning texts. Alina had come to him late one night, suitcase at her feet. "I'm not leaving because I want to," she said quietly. "I'm leaving because I'm tired of begging for a place in your life." He barely looked up from his screen. "You're choosing this moment?" She had stared at him for a long time. "No, you chose first." He remembered the way her eyes held sadness and pride at once. He remembered watching her go, thinking she'd come back once the storm passed. She didn't, and he never chased her. Not because he didn't care, but because the company came first, always had. He thought he had time to fix it later. There was no later. Back in the present, Jasper stood beneath a tree near the valet station, away from the crowd. He exhaled hard, loosening his collar. He had daughters, 2 of them. He'd missed first steps, first words, birthdays. Everything. Alina had raised them alone, without bitterness in her eyes, without resentment in her voice. He didn't know what kind of mother she was now, but he remembered who she'd always been. Warm, smart, protective, and now unshaken. The guilt ran thick, but beneath it, something else stirred. Resolve. He wasn't going to walk away again. Not from this, not from them. He turned toward the garden where Alina stood, her arms around the girls, watching him quietly from across the lawn. His jaw set. "I need to know them," he thought, "and I need her to see I've changed." The greenhouse at the far end of the Warrington estate stood half forgotten by the guests, veiled in twilight and wrapped in vines. Lanterns flickered from the rafters, casting a golden glow over leafy paths and marble pedestals. Alina stood at the center, beneath an arch of flowering citrus. Mia and Lila explored quietly, their fingers trailing over hanging leaves and potted herbs. Jasper stepped inside and paused. It had been years since he'd been this close to her without a screen or a crowd between them. She was just as he remembered, maybe softer around the edges, but her presence, her stillness, still held the power to quiet everything in him. Alina looked up. "You came?" He gave a quiet nod. "I needed to." A long moment passed between them. The scent of soil and orange blossom hung between words unsaid. He glanced toward the twins. "They're beautiful. They're curious," Alina said, watching them. "Lila wants to be a dancer. Mia draws everything she sees. They're smart, sharp," she said, folding her arms. "Just like you." That pulled a half laugh from him. "God help us." She didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. Lila wandered back, dragging a small watering can behind her. She stopped at Jasper's feet, looking up, head tilted. "Are you really our dad?" The question cracked something in him. "I am," he said softly, "if you'll let me be." Mia peeked from behind a large fern, inching closer. "Where were you?" Jasper crouched to her level, a hard knot in his throat. "Far away, too far. But not anymore." Lila looked over at Alina, then back at him. "You look like us," he nodded. "You look like the best part of me." That drew a shy giggle. Mia reached for his hand, hesitating. When he opened his palm, she placed her tiny fingers against his. He didn't close his hand, just held the moment still. "I've missed everything," he whispered. Alina turned her face away, blinking fast. "You missed a lot," she said flatly. "But they're not here to fill a hole. They're whole already." "I know," his voice cracked. "I'm not here to fix anything. I'm here to learn what I lost." The twins stood between them now, silent but listening. Alina motioned for the girls to explore further. They darted toward a cluster of wild basil and rose vines. Jasper straightened. "You did all of this on your own." Her arms folded again. "With help." "Not from you." He nodded, accepting the sting. "I didn't know. I sent a letter. I never got it. I sent another. Blocked. Maybe I had people screaming." He stopped. "No excuse." "No, there isn't." Silence again. He stepped closer. "I'm not the same man," he said. She looked up at him, hard eyes softening only slightly. "What are you now? Someone who saw what he gave up and wants to find a way back to?" "What? Us? To whatever you let me earn." Alina blinked, her jaw tightened, but she didn't walk away. "Don't make this a project, Jasper. I'm not. You always choose goals. I'm not one." He swallowed hard. "I know." A breeze slipped through the cracked greenhouse pane, rustling the leaves. Jasper moved closer. Alina didn't step back. He reached toward her slowly, his hand brushing her upper arm. Her skin was warm, familiar. "I remember your laugh," he murmured. Her lips twitched. You used to make me laugh. I used to forget why I needed to. She held his gaze, something flickering behind it. Anger. Maybe, but something gentler too. Their foreheads nearly touched. I don't know what happens next, he whispered. That's the first honest thing you've said in years. His voice nearly broke, and he looked away for a second, unable to hold her eyes. His heart thudded unevenly, as though it didn't trust this moment was real. He cleared his throat before meeting her gaze again. I'd like to keep being honest, even if it's messy. She stepped back an inch, not rejection, just a reset. I have daughters to protect, she said. He nodded. I'm not asking to bypass that, just to be let in. Her eyes dropped to his hand. It was still resting on her arm. She didn't remove it. Jasper looked at the twins as they giggled over something by a row of tomatoes. I missed their first words. First steps, scraped knees, bedtime stories. Yes, she said. I'll never get those back. But I want to be there for everything else. Alina sighed. Don't say that unless you mean to show up. I will. She shook her head. They don't need another promise. He turned to her fully now. I want to be part of their lives, whatever it takes. You don't have to say yes now. Just don't shut the door. She studied him, eyes unreadable. Lila likes pancakes shaped like stars. Mia refuses to go to sleep without a book. You still want in? I want to know all of it. She exhaled slowly, then prove it. The twins called for her, laughter bouncing through the greenhouse. She turned slightly, but not all the way. Jasper stepped beside her, close, closer. She didn't move. I'm sorry, he whispered, for all of it. Her breath caught. She looked up at him. This man who had once disappeared into work and silence, now standing still. Open. He leaned in, not urgent, not demanding, just there. Their lips met gently, a kiss without pressure, without plans. Her hand rested against his chest, feeling the rhythm of his pulse. When she pulled back, her voice was soft. Don't make me regret letting you close. I won't. She nodded once, then turned to her girls. But Jasper stayed where he was, still feeling the shape of her mouth. On his, the first step was taken. The next morning, the view from Jasper's penthouse offered nothing. Just city haze and reflections. He didn't care to admire the skyline. It could collapse, and he wouldn't have blinked. He sat at his kitchen table, still in last night's clothes, with his laptop open. The screen glowed coldly as he scrolled through archived folders. Years of digital silence. His inbox was pristine, surgically organized. No junk, no clutter. Too perfect. He narrowed the search to 5 years ago, the period after Alina left. His hands paused on the keyboard. He typed her name, nothing. Then her old address, still nothing. He tried phrases, pregnancy, urgent, Seaview, Ward, Holt, anything. And there, buried in filtered logs, was a record. An auto-deletion entry tagged by his former executive assistant. The subject line, please read this, it's important. He clicked it. The content had been flagged, filtered, and removed before reaching him. He slumped back. His chest felt like it was folding in. Jasper stared at the screen, heart sinking. The system audit log showed the email flagged by a manual rule, one written by a real person, not automation. He scrolled further. More attempts, 3 in total. One marked as potential spam. Another redirected to a personal distractions folder, an internal joke once created during his busiest season. The joke had cost him 5 years. He rubbed his temples, then pushed away from the table. He'd hired people to protect his time, to keep distractions away, and they'd done exactly that. Alina hadn't disappeared. She'd been erased by him. 3 hours later, he sat across from Marianne, his current assistant. But they weren't here to discuss meetings or investors. He showed her the audit logs. Who created this rule? Marianne stiffened. That was me, on your directive. You told me to filter personal messages that might affect your focus. His eyes stayed on hers, even ones marked important. I didn't read them. The system flagged them, and I just followed protocol. His voice dropped. There was a letter from Alina, about the girls. Marianne's expression changed. Regret, discomfort. I didn't know. I swear. I thought it was emotional noise. We were trying to survive the audit. The layoffs. I told you to protect my time, not my life. She looked down. I'm sorry. Jasper stood. So am I. He left without another word. The elevator descended in silence. Jasper's reflection stared back at him from the polished metal walls. Untouched suit, shadowed eyes, hollow man. He wanted to scream. At Marianne, at himself, at the version of him who thought closing a deal was more urgent than opening his heart. How many birthdays had he missed? What had Alina gone through? Pregnant, alone, probably scared. He saw her in that greenhouse again, strong, calm, raising their daughters without a trace of bitterness in her voice. He didn't deserve her grace. He didn't deserve those girls. He sank into the backseat of his car and closed his eyes. All the money in the world couldn't undo silence. But it could make space for truth. Can someone truly redeem themselves after missing years of their children's lives? Would you open the door to a man who walked away not by cruelty, but by carelessness? Let me ask you, if the truth finally came to light, would you give someone the chance to make it right? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Now back to the story. The evening brought rain. Jasper didn't use an umbrella. He stood outside Alina's townhouse in soaked clothes, his hair plastered to his forehead, his hands clenched into his coat pockets. He didn't bring flowers or excuses. He brought the truth. When the door opened, Alina stood in leggings and a loose sweatshirt, barefoot, a towel slung over one shoulder. She blinked once. "You're drenched." "I had to come. Texting works. I needed to look you in the eye." She hesitated, then stepped aside. He entered. The smell of vanilla and laundry filled the quiet space. Children's books sat on a low shelf, tiny shoes by the door, drawings on the fridge. "I found the emails," he said. "You wrote." "I never saw them." She folded her arms. 5 years later, that matters? "It matters to me. I already did it alone. I don't need your guilt. I'm not offering guilt, I'm offering presence. Late, but real." She looked at him. This man who had once vanished into ambition, now standing in wet clothes, voice stripped of polish. She didn't say yes, but she didn't ask him to leave. Sunlight crept softly through the green greenhouse panels, stretching its reach across terracotta floors and glistening leaves. Jasper stirred first, his back pressed against the worn velvet of a chaise lounge, arms still wrapped loosely around Alina. Her cheek rested against his chest, breath steady. Her silk dress was draped over them both, like a makeshift blanket. A few feet away, on a thick picnic blanket, Mia and Lila lay curled beside each other, sound asleep in a tangle of curls and limbs. One clutched a stuffed bunny, the other had a thumb in her mouth. Jasper didn't move. Not yet. He just lay there watching the rise and fall of Alina's breath, hearing the soft hum of the waking world outside. This moment, quiet, complete, was something money couldn't engineer. He hadn't planned for it, he wouldn't have dared hope for it, and yet it was here. The warmth of her skin, the scent of garden air, the gentle rhythm of little bodies breathing nearby. He closed his eyes again, letting the stillness anchor him. By mid-morning, the greenhouse kitchen buzzed with soft energy. Jasper, shirt rolled at the sleeves, stood at the counter flipping pancakes with clumsy enthusiasm. "Stars?" he asked. "Stars," Lila confirmed, nodding like a queen. Alina leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, amused. "You're really committing." "I once coded an entire payment platform overnight," he said, trying to shape batter with a spoon. "How hard can a pancake be?" Mia whispered to her sister. "It looks like a jellyfish." "I heard that," he said, grinning. "This is avant-garde breakfast art." The girls giggled. Alina walked over, took the spatula, and with one graceful motion flipped the lumpy star into something acceptable. "You're hired," he said, "hands up." "I've always been management," she replied smoothly. The four of them sat around the small wooden table, sunlight catching on the syrup jar. Pancakes were devoured. Bananas were bartered. Orange juice was spilled twice. It was chaotic, messy, and perfect. Jasper laughed more in 30 minutes than he had in the last 2 years. Later, in the sunlit backyard behind the townhouse, Mia pulled him toward a fold-out table covered in paper and markers. "Draw with me." He hesitated, then dropped to one knee beside her. "I haven't drawn since I was your size." She handed him a blue marker. "You can do sky." "Fair enough." They worked side by side. Mia's drawing showed a house with flowers, 2 girls, and a tall man holding both their hands. Above them, she wrote in large letters, "Us." Jasper stared at it longer than he meant to. He folded it carefully when she wasn't looking and slipped it into his pocket. Meanwhile, Lila darted past them, a mini soccer ball tucked under one arm. "Game time," she shouted. Jasper looked at Alina, who nodded toward the grass. "She's fast. I'm faster." Moments later, he was chasing Lila barefoot, the ball zigzagging across the lawn. Mia cheered from the sidelines. Lila shrieked when he scooped her up mid-run and spun her in the air. "You cheated," she cried, laughing. I innovated, he replied, grinning. As the sun climbed, Alina brought out lemonade, placing glasses on the patio table while watching the game unfold. The laughter of her daughters filled the yard. The breeze ruffled her hair. She didn't speak much, but she watched. She watched how Jasper bent down to listen when Mia whispered a joke. How he waited for Lila to tie her shoe, even though he could have done it faster. How he wiped syrup from Mia's cheek without comment and didn't once check his phone. They pulled weeds from the garden beds later. Well, Jasper attempted. He held up a dandelion with confusion. Is this one a weed or a flower? Alina smiled faintly. Both. By midday, he had mud on his shirt and grass stains on his slacks and didn't seem to care. She handed him a towel. Your board would faint. He glanced at her, towel over his shoulder. They've never seen this version of me. She blinked, caught off guard by the honesty in his tone. You like it? He added. She looked at her daughters, then at him. I'm watching, she said. After lunch, while the twins napped inside, Alina sat beside Jasper on the back steps. 2 mugs of tea sat between them. She didn't say much, just breathed. You don't have to pretend to be impressed, he said, sipping slowly. I'm not. He looked at her. I'm impressed, she clarified. His smile faded into something gentler. I've built a lot of things, teams, systems, companies. But this, he gestured toward the quiet house behind them, this is the first thing I want to keep building. Without ownership. Just presence. She was quiet for a while. You were selfish, she said. I was. You missed everything. I did. She turned to him steady. But today you weren't acting. No, she reached for her mug. Then don't ruin it. I won't. Their hands brushed on the step. She didn't pull away. Late afternoon melted into golden light. The twins woke up groggy and hungry. Alina stood at the kitchen counter, opening a drawer full of takeout menus. Jasper peeked in. Let me cook something. You cook now? I follow instructions. Well, she looked amused. Let me guess. You'll order a meal kit and pass it off as your own. Guilty. But seriously, I'd like to stay. Help. Be here. She studied him, not with suspicion this time, but care. Stay for dinner, she said finally. He nodded. I'd like that. That evening, he stirred pasta while the girls danced barefoot in the hallway, chasing one another in circles. Alina stood at the sink, slicing basil, smiling quietly to herself. He watched her for a moment. She looked up. What? He stepped closer, voice low. This feels like something real. It is. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. That night, the house glowed, not with wealth, but with welcome. The estate's pool house sat away from the main building, low-lit, paneled in polished oak, with wide glass doors that opened to quiet water and trimmed hedges. Lanterns glowed along the path, guiding the way like soft punctuation marks. In the dark inside, the space held a calm warmth. A bottle of red wine rested on the side table. Music hummed low from a speaker, something quiet and slow, full of strings. Alina sat on the wide chaise by the window, wrapped in a pale silk robe. Her curls hung loose, her legs tucked beneath her. The candlelight caught along her collarbone, making her glow in quiet places. Jasper walked in wearing a linen shirt unbuttoned at the throat, sleeves rolled to the elbow. No blazer, no boardroom presence, just him. She glanced up as he approached, one brow lifting. This isn't a business dinner, you know. He poured her a glass. I didn't come to pitch. She accepted the wine, swirling it once before taking a sip. Good. I'm off the market. He sat beside her but kept a respectful distance. You're not wearing armor tonight. She took another sip. Neither are you. The silence that followed was not awkward. It was deliberate, measured, the kind of pause that knows exactly what it's waiting for. Jasper set his glass down and leaned forward, elbows on knees. I've been thinking about that night you left. She didn't interrupt. Her gaze stayed steady. You gave me a choice. I made the wrong one. Alina breathed in deeply, fingers tracing the rim of her glass. I didn't want to walk away. I wanted you to look at me and say we mattered more. You did. I just didn't know how to say it without feeling like I was giving up the thing I'd worked for. She met his eyes. We weren't asking you to give up anything. We were asking to be seen. I see you now, he said quietly. And I know it's late, but I'm here. Her face softened, but her voice didn't lose its clarity. You don't get to erase the past. I'm not trying to. He turned toward her, closer. I want to build something new, with everything we are now. Nothing hidden, nothing denied. The way she looked at him then, no longer angry, no longer guarded, was the closest thing to yes he'd seen in years. I wanted you to choose us back then, she said. He nodded. I'm choosing now. He didn't reach for her. He waited. She set her wineglass down and stood slowly. Her robe shifted as she moved, the silk catching at her thighs. She walked to the window, gazing out at the moonlight scattered across the pool. Why now? She asked. Because when I saw those girls, when I saw you, I realized success hadn't filled me. It had starved me. She turned, leaning against the frame. I'm not a reward for personal growth. You're not. You're the part I lost before I even knew what I was doing. He stood, closed the space between them, his hands still at his sides. You still want me? She asked, voice quiet but pointed. I want you. Not the memory of us, not the idea of family. You. She looked up at him, expression unreadable. Then her fingers reached for his collar, pulled him toward her and kissed him. Firm, certain, electric. The tension dissolved. Her robe loosened beneath his hands. Her mouth was warm, open, pulling him into a kiss that wasn't rushed but didn't hesitate. She took his hand, guiding him to the plush floor cushions in front of the window. They knelt before each other, knees brushing, hearts racing. Jasper reached for her face, cradling her cheek. He kissed her again, slower now, purposeful. Her fingers moved to his buttons, undoing each with care, as if peeling away years. When her hands pressed to his bare chest, he inhaled sharply, not from the contact, but from what it meant. She lay back on the cushions, robe open, silk slipping from her shoulders. Her skin was golden under the flickering candlelight, her body relaxed but alert. He kissed her shoulder, then her sternum, tracing a path down her abdomen. Every part of her felt familiar and new. She arched to meet him, her fingers digging gently into his arms. Clothes disappeared. The air turned heavy with shared heat. He moved over her, not rushed, not careless. Each motion was deliberate. Each sound from her lips a mark of surrender. When he entered her, she gasped softly, legs curling around him. They moved together in a rhythm that needed no teaching. His mouth found hers between every breath, every stroke. It wasn't just physical. It was forgiveness written in motion. Her body pulsed beneath him. Her name left his lips like a confession. She clung tighter, pressing her forehead to his as her release trembled through her. His followed, buried in the curve of her neck, his body shaking with the force of it. They didn't speak, just held each other. They lay tangled in the afterglow, skin damp, limbs still knotted together. Outside, the wind moved through hedges in gentle gusts. Jasper kissed her shoulder, trailing his fingertips along her spine. Alina, eyes closed, rested her head against his chest, heartbeat steadying. You okay? He murmured. She nodded slow, more than okay. He stroked her arm in silence, then asked, Did I hurt you back then? She lifted her head. You didn't hit me, but you forgot me. That kind of hurt lasts longer. His face tensed. I wish I could go back. I don't, she said. You needed to fall on your own, and I needed to find out I could rise without you. He blinked, throat tightening. But she added, I didn't stop wanting you. Jasper closed his eyes. I missed all of this, every version of you I didn't get to know. You still can, she whispered. If you don't run again. He kissed her fingers. I won't run. Not now. Not ever. They fell quiet again, fingers threading together like roots finding their way back through familiar ground. The candles had burned low. The pool lights shimmered faintly through the windows. Somewhere in the distance, a siren faded into stillness. Alina sat up, reaching for her robe. Jasper stopped her gently. Stay. I should check on the girls. They're safe. Just stay a minute. She hesitated, then lay back down beside him, cheek against his chest. He stroked her hair, slow and careful. No one's touched me like that in years, she said softly. He tilted her chin up. I wasn't just touching your body. I know, she whispered. He brushed her bottom lip with his thumb. You trust me? She exhaled. I'm starting to. Her hand found his. She curled into his side, legs tangling with his again. I trust you, she said this time with her eyes open. He kissed her temple. The lights dimmed. The house breathed around them. They weren't healed, but they weren't strangers anymore. The next few weeks shifted like the slow turning of a tide. Jasper didn't announce his presence. He simply arrived on Tuesday. He stood quietly at the back of Mia and Leela's ballet class, dressed in jeans and a soft gray pullover, arms crossed but eyes soft. Alina saw him through the mirror. He wasn't checking his phone. He wasn't trying to be noticed. He watched every pirouette, every stumble, every moment. Leela waved mid-spin. Mia beamed. On Thursday, he showed up at the pediatrician's office. No tie, just clean sneakers and a shy smile. He carried a coloring book for the waiting room. "Blood pressure?" the nurse asked. "Mine or theirs?" he joked. Alina smirked. He held both girls' hands during the visit and never once flinched at the sound of a needle. Saturday brought the summer fair. Jasper stood in line for cotton candy, wiped faces with napkins, and climbed onto the carousel beside Mia without hesitation. Later, when the girls were dizzy with joy, he bought a tiny stuffed giraffe and handed it to Lila. Because every queen needs a royal pet, she hugged it fiercely. By the second weekend, Jasper arrived with a trunk full of lumber and blueprints. "What's this?" Alina asked from the porch, arms crossed. "A peace offering. And maybe a treehouse." She laughed once. "You don't even own a hammer. I do now." He let the twins paint the sign, "Clubhouse rules, no bullies, no boring grown-ups." Jasper did most of the hammering while the girls offered quality control. Alina brought lemonade and watched from the deck, secretly amused at his determination. That night, he read Goodnight Moon with exaggerated voices while they curled into pillows. Again, Lila whispered. He read it twice. On evening walks, he held one daughter's hand and let the other ride on his shoulders. They picked dandelions, counted bluebirds, and made up stories about cloud shapes. Once, while crouched in the grass searching for a lost doll shoe, Jasper muttered, "This is better than every pitch I ever nailed." Alina, watching from a few feet away, didn't respond, but she smiled. Jasper still ran trellis, but his hours shifted. His board noticed. His calls shortened. His assistant whispered, "You okay?" He was. Every missed dinner meeting was traded for bath time and banana-smeared giggles. He learned how to braid Mia's hair, badly at first, then better. He memorized the names of Lila's dolls. He downloaded apps to help with phonics and spent half an hour explaining algorithms in 5-year-old language. Each night ended with 2 tiny voices shouting, "Story," from under blankets. He began writing bedtime tales on his phone, short stories where twin girls saved kingdoms with kindness and candy. At work, he once paused mid-meeting to check a video Alina sent, Mia doing a perfect cartwheel. He smiled the rest of the day. The man who once held court in silence now sat cross-legged in a beanbag chair, debating the merits of glitter glue. He wasn't trying to impress. He was trying to stay. One evening, after the twins were asleep, Alina stepped outside to find Jasper fixing the latch on the backyard gate. "Didn't know you were handy," she said, sipping from a mug. He shrugged, trying to keep the raccoons out. She leaned against the post. "You've been steady." He wiped his hands. "Trying." She looked at him for a long time, then she said, "You're becoming someone I trust again." His shoulders dropped a little, like a weight shifted. "That means more than you think. It means a lot to me," she replied. He glanced toward the lit bedroom window. "Upstairs, they call me Jasper. It's fine, but sometimes I wonder if they'll ever call me." Alina's expression softened. "They will, but only when it feels right." "I'll wait," he said. She nodded. "Good." Then, after a pause, she added, "I'm proud of how you're showing up." He looked at her, truly looked. "I'm proud of you for never disappearing." Sunday morning, the house smelled like cinnamon and wet grass. Jasper sat at the breakfast table, flipping pancakes while humming. Lila ran in dragging a blanket. Mia closed behind with a sock puppet. "Pancakes?" he asked. "Chocolate chip," Lila bargained. He smiled. "Deal." As he served them, Mia climbed into her seat and looked at him thoughtfully. "Daddy," she said, testing the word like it was brand new. Jasper froze. "Yes, sweetie?" She nodded, satisfied. "I like pancakes when you make them," Lila grinned. "Me too, Daddy." He couldn't breathe for a moment. Alina stood by the doorway, one hand covering her mouth. She didn't interrupt. He bent down, kissed both girls on the tops of their heads, and whispered, "You just made my whole life." That afternoon, they planted flowers along the porch. Lila named hers Blossom and said it would grow faster because Daddy helped. Jasper glanced at Alina. She didn't speak. She just reached for his hand and didn't let go. The late afternoon air was soft, the kind that pressed against your skin without weight. The sun was starting its descent, casting long golden streaks over the water. Jasper held a woven basket in one hand and Lila's tiny backpack in the other. Mia clutched a blanket rolled under her arm. Alina walked beside them, holding both girls' hands as they approached the docks behind the lake preserve. "I thought we were just going to the park," she said, narrowing her eyes. He smirked. "I upgraded the plan." The picnic spot had been set hours earlier by his assistant, checked once, then checked again by Jasper himself. A wide blanket sat under an oak tree near the wooden railing of the dock, with cushions, a small basket of fruit, sandwiches, lemonade, and 2 folding chairs for the adults. Lila squealed and darted forward. "We're eating by the water." Mia followed, her curls bouncing. Alina raised an eyebrow as she looked at the setup. "Trying to show me up? I'm just trying to give you a day without lifting a finger." She said, but her lips curved slightly. The 4 of them sat, legs stretched out, eyes on the slow ripples of the lake. Jasper poured lemonade, handed each girl their favorite snack without asking, and laid back with a satisfied sigh. "This," he said, "is the most peaceful moment I've had in years." As the sun dipped lower, bathing the water in amber light, Jasper sat up and reached into the picnic basket. Alina looked up from slicing apples. "You're still hiding things. Just one more." He pulled out a small wooden box and handed it to her. She stared at it, then slowly opened the lid. Inside was a single antique-style key. Its brass surface polished and weighty. She looked at him. "What is this?" "There's a house," he said, "not far from here. White shutters, blue door, wraparound porch, big backyard." Alina didn't speak. "It's been sitting empty for years," he continued. "I bought it, renovated it, kept the original structure, hardwood floors, sunroom, 2 kids' rooms already painted. One's pink, the other lavender. You can change them." Her breath hitched. "You bought a house? I bought a home." She closed the box softly. "Why? For you. For them. For us." Jasper reached for her hand, fingers brushing hers. "I know I can't rewrite the last 5 years," he said, voice low, "but I can build what comes next." Alina ran her thumb over the key, eyes locked on it. "You didn't need to do this," she said, her voice steady but soft. "I wanted to. Not as a gesture, as a foundation." The twins listened, quiet now. Lila crawled into Jasper's lap, curling against him. Mia moved closer to Alina, slipping her arm around her mother's waist. Jasper's voice barely rose above the breeze. "I don't just want visits and weekends. I want a life that starts with all of us, under the same roof." Alina blinked rapidly. She looked at her daughters, then back at him. "You still have to earn your place," she whispered. "I know, but I'll do it. Day by day, brick by brick." She nodded once. "Then let's start with a key." Mia looked up. "Does the new house have a tree?" "It has 2, Jasper replied. "Can we have swings?" "Already installed," Lila gasped. "And a garden?" He smiled. "I planted strawberries last week." The girls leapt toward him in unison, wrapping their arms around his neck. Alina stayed back, watching the way he cradled them both without letting go. The sight pulled something deep from her, something protective and proud but also wounded. Then Mia reached for her. "Come on, Mommy." She hesitated for half a second, then moved. They all came together. Arms overlapping, bodies pressed close. Jasper buried his face in Alina's hair, inhaling her warmth. Her hands slid along his back, not in hesitation, but in return. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For showing up." His voice cracked. "I'm never leaving again." The breeze stirred the edge of the blanket. The lake glistened behind them. And for once, everything felt aligned. The sun slipped just below the horizon. Fireflies began to blink in and out across the tall grass. Mia tugged gently on Alina's sleeve. "Can we move in now?" Lila echoed her. "Right now." Alina laughed through a tear. "We have to pack a few things." "Just clothes," Mia said. "We already have Daddy now." Jasper swallowed hard. "The house is ready whenever you are." Alina looked at him, her eyes glassy. "You didn't ask me to live there. I didn't want to pressure you." "Next time," she said, placing a hand on his cheek, "just ask." He smiled. "Okay." She turned to the girls. "Yes, we'll move in." Both twins shrieked with joy, jumping and hugging each other. Lila spun in a circle until she fell over giggling. Jasper exhaled a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Home wasn't just a structure. It was this. One answer, 4 lives entwined. That evening, they visited the new house. Jasper led them up the steps, unlocking the front door. The hallway smelled like fresh paint and lemon oil. The living room opened into soft light with built-in shelves already stocked with books and small touches Alina would later realize he'd remembered, like a mint green teapot on the kitchen shelf. The girls raced through the rooms, shouting claims on beds and windows. Alina stepped onto the porch, where the breeze lifted her curls and the view stretched to the quiet road beyond. Jasper joined her. "I never thought I'd see you like this," she said. "Like what?" "Settled." He stepped behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "I'm not settled," he murmured. "I'm planted." She leaned back into him, The twins burst outside barefoot, chasing lightning bugs and giggling under the soft sky. Jasper turned her toward him. "I love you." For a moment the words hovered between them, fragile. A familiar ache flickered in his chest, a fear he still carried that all this was too good to last, that he'd wake up alone again. He swallowed it down and held her gaze. She blinked slowly, then smiled. "You're finally saying it like you mean it." He kissed her. Not for show, not for apology, but for beginning. The mornings no longer began with calendar alerts or investor reports. They started with the soft thump of little feet on the hallway floor and the scent of cinnamon wafting from the kitchen. Jasper stood at the stove, apron askew, flipping French toast, with Mia perched beside him on a stool. "You're burning the edges," she noted, nose wrinkled. He laughed. "You're supposed to be the taste tester, not the critic." "Same thing," she replied, stealing a slice. In the dining room, Lila carefully set the table, one mismatched plate at a time. She adjusted forks like it was a high-stakes ceremony. Alina walked in, robe cinched, coffee mug in hand. She paused in the doorway, watching them without speaking. Her life used to feel like a race she ran alone. Now it felt like a rhythm, different steps, same music. When the girls took their seats and Jasper joined them with a stack of uneven toast, Alina leaned in and kissed his cheek. "You're getting better," he grinned. "You're just afraid I'll get cocky." She didn't disagree. One rainy Saturday, flour dusted the counters like powdered snow. Jasper stood in the kitchen wearing a navy blue apron that read "Yes, Chef." Alina leaned against him, elbow deep in dough, her hands guiding his clumsy attempts to knead it properly. "You're too soft," she said. He raised a brow. "Physically or emotionally?" "Both," she deadpanned. He chuckled, brushing flour on her nose. She retaliated with a splash of milk on his shirt. The kitchen turned into soft chaos, flour trails on the floor, sugar stuck to their fingers, laughter caught between poorly measured ingredients. The girls peeked in now and then but didn't interrupt. They watched with wide eyes as if studying a language they wanted to speak one day. By the time the bread went into the oven, the storm had passed outside. Jasper stood behind Alina, arms wrapped around her waist, cheek against her temple. They didn't say anything. They didn't need to. On Sundays, they explored. Bike rides through quiet streets led to wide fields where the twins could race without traffic or timelines. Jasper pedaled slowly, making sure no one fell behind. Mia, determined, always led the pack. Lila zigzagged, chasing butterflies. Alina kept pace beside him, ponytail swinging, face relaxed in a way he hadn't seen since before the split. Afterward, they'd head to the beach. No grand trips, no overplanned excursions. Just a quilt on the sand, snacks in a cooler, and wind pulling at their towels. The girls built lopsided castles, while Jasper dug trenches with a plastic shovel like it was a business proposal. Alina watched them from under her sun hat, smiling faintly at the sight of the man she'd once thought incapable of slowing down. He wasn't chasing deals anymore. He was chasing joy, his own, theirs. And every time he lifted one of the girls in the air or let them cover him in sand, he proved it wasn't just a season. It was a decision. In the boardroom, he ruled. In this home, he learned to love. He chased numbers once, chased power, achievement, acclaim, but none of it gave him what that simple word did: Daddy. Because legacy isn't built from equity stakes or keynote speeches. It's built from bedtime stories, missed calls answered with kisses, and soft hands holding on to yours just a little longer than expected. The backyard glowed with tiny lights strung from fence to fence. It wasn't a holiday or celebration. It was just a warm evening that asked to be remembered. Her played a jazz playlist from his phone. Lila stood on his feet, letting him guide her in slow, clumsy twirls. Mia copied from the side, arms spread wide, humming along. Alina stepped out from the kitchen carrying glasses of lemonade. He reached for her with one hand. She rolled her eyes, but took it. They swayed gently beneath the canopy of lights, barefoot in the grass. The girls danced circles around them, giggling. "You're not bad," she teased. "I'm better with the right partner." She tilted her head back, laughing softly. The music drifted, the girls' laughter floated. The whole yard shimmered, not from wealth, but from wealth, something earned through effort and repair. Jasper bent down and kissed her forehead. "Stay," he whispered. "I'm here," she replied. The night buzzed softly with crickets. The air held the sweet scent of basil and clean linen. He laced his fingers with hers. "You saved me from myself," he said. Alina didn't answer right away. She looked out at the girls, then at the porch. They now shared the home they filled with new memories. "No," she whispered. "You chose us. That saved me." Their eyes met in the low light. He leaned in, kissed her. Slow, tender, sure. Behind them, Lila called out from the blanket. "Daddy, Mia's hogging the lemonade." Jasper laughed into Alina's mouth, pulling back with a quiet smile. "I should go rescue the rations." "Go on, hero," she teased. He stood, jogged toward the blanket, scooped both girls into his arms as they squealed in delight. Alina watched, arms folded, eyes bright. She had raised them strong, but now they could grow with him there too. Their future wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was theirs. Under fairy lights and family laughter, Jasper Holt found what power never gave him: peace. He didn't just reclaim his family, he reclaimed the best version of himself. For years, Jasper Holt chased everything except the life waiting quietly in the background. While the world celebrated his empire, he forgot what it meant to build a home. He missed birthdays, missed first steps, missed the kind of quiet joy that doesn't make headlines. But when the truth caught up to him, he didn't hide. He showed up. He listened, and then he stayed. Not every story gets a second chance, but when it does, the question isn't whether you deserve it. It's whether you're ready to hold it differently this time. Jasper couldn't erase his past, but he could change what came next. And in doing so, he gave his daughters the father they'd always deserved, and gave the woman he once lost a reason to trust again. Now let me ask you something. What would you do if the woman you left returned with a life you didn't know you needed? Would you run again? Or would you finally stay long enough to understand what you almost lost? Would you keep chasing numbers and power? Or would you turn around and face the family, still hoping you'd come back? Not everyone gets another shot at love. Few ever get a chance to prove they've changed. But if you did, would you take it? Let us know in the comments. Tell us what part of this story reminded you of someone or something you can't afford to ignore anymore, because someone's waiting for you to show up. Not perfect, not prepared, but honest. If this story touched your heart, don't scroll past. Like this video. Share it with someone you care about. Drop a comment below, even if it's just a heart. And most of all, subscribe to this channel for more stories like this. Stories that remind us that it's never too late to love better, to be better, and to try again. Someone out there needs this message of second chances. Let's spread it together. Thanks for watching. And remember, sometimes the best stories begin at the moment you choose to return. So the story is over, and our wonderful friends, are you still here at this hour? If you are really here, reading this now, it means something in this journey has touched your heart in a way that maybe you didn't expect. And I want us to pause and look at it together, not from a place of right or wrong, but just from a place of honesty. Jasper's story is more than a man who built an empire and almost lost everything that truly mattered. It's about the quiet courage it takes to come back to the life waiting in the background, the life you thought you could always get to later. But as this story shows us, later isn't always guaranteed. Sometimes we don't get to erase our past mistakes. We only get the choice to face them and try again. Ethnocentrism teaches that we often judge others through the narrow lens of our own experiences. But healing, real healing, happens when we're willing to see beyond ourselves. Like Jasper did when he finally showed up, not to be applauded, not to be forgiven on demand, but to stand still and be known. You don't have to be perfect to start over. You don't have to have the right words or the right timing. You just have to be brave enough to return and to hold what you almost lost in both hands. If this story made you think of someone you can't afford to keep at arm's length, I hope you take that as your sign. Maybe it's time to go back. Maybe it's time to be honest, even if it's messy. If you're still here, I'd love to ask you to do 3 small things that mean so much. Like this video so others can find it. Share it with someone who needs to hear that second chances are real. And subscribe to this channel for more stories that remind us all, it's never too late to love better, to be better, and to try again. Because sometimes the best stories begin at the moment you finally choose to come home.